Hey, I got two people already. I don't really have a whole lot to say, and I decided to pop online, not despite that, but because of it. Um, Taking a few days to try to get the channel off my mind. Had a lot less involvement with Ryan past couple days, and today didn't talk to him at all. Had nothing planned. Just took some sleeping pills a little while ago. Then did a few sets of push-ups, which put me into a strange headspace. And not able to fully get the channel off my mind, I decided to try popping on. I doubt, I'm keeping open that I might just delete this right after, because I don't know if anything's going to come from it. But I would invite you to tell me something about yourself. What did I titled this, Why Are You Here? And of course, there's the larger question of that, which is always interesting in getting into. And if anyone wants to share a more metaphysical answer as to why you're here, that's fine. But I also meant it more literally. Why are you here? Why click on this particular Lunatic Live? I don't know where you are, but where I am, it's 1:22 a.m. on a Sunday. And you chose to click on this and come here. Why are you here? What are you hoping to see? What impulse within you had you click on this? Okay, it's Monday. Wait, so does that mean, okay, it's Monday now. You're correct. Technically, that's not the way I look at time. To me, 1 a.m., because it was, Sunday yesterday. It's now 1 a.m. Monday. But I look at 1 a.m. as late at night the night before. To me, I consider this still Sunday night. Sunday night goes until I fall asleep. No idea why you're here. You're just intrigued. So, Drake, Madonna, okay. So, have you ever watched a Lunatic Live before, or have you watched Sorting Myself Out recently? Do you know who I am, or did you just pop on here having no idea what this would be? Okay, so Lunatic Live it denotes, because this channel is run by two people now. There's me and Ryan Hallsapple. Now, Ryan Hallsapple is, he's studying Jungian psychology right now. He's studied Gestalt dream therapy. So he's taking very serious practices in studying personal transformation. On the other hand, I am bipolar, and I am the resident, lunatic shaman. And so, both me and Ryan have huge interest in that as well. In fact, for a lot of people, they first got into Jordan Peterson over the controversy stuff. A lot of people will say one of their first videos was protesters yelling at him or whatnot. But I was just watching videos on depth psychology and Carl Jung, and first came across him that way. But Ryan right now is writing a number of papers about Jungian psychology, and he'll be sharing a lot of that on the channel. He's far more the order side of this, and the respected, properly credentialed person to be doing this kind of thing. Okay, if you've been watching a lot of JBP, that'll be why. This channel originally wasn't started by us. It was started by Andrew Jokum. And Peterson was on the channel once, but Andrew started the channel very Peterson, based on his own self-authoring. and working out Peterson's ideas. So the channel's tied in closely to Peterson. But Ryan and I just took over the channel about 2 months ago. Andrew decided to step away from it, and he asked us to take it over. And both me and Ryan sometimes go on live on our own. Ryan puts up a lot of stuff on his own as well, although I give him feedback on stuff. And sometimes we're on live together. We bring on audience members who are doing self-authoring or who are interested in discussing JBP or the dark web. Why am I doing this 1 a.m. on Sunday night? Okay, so yeah. So Lunatic Live, all minds start with that, and that just means it's me, the bipolar lunatic side of this channel, and I just come on randomly whenever I feel like it. I'm nocturnal. So my natural body clock, I get tired shortly before the sun comes up. So to me, this is sort of the end of my evening. It's 1:26. I'll probably go to bed in 2 to 3.5 hours. And so this is just me passing some time late at night. I guess was feeling curious about who the fuck comes on here to watch this shit when I come on. And although I wasn't having... I had absolutely nothing to say. I was curious about who would come on and wanted to hear more about you. So you've been thinking about doing the self-authoring. Awesome. I bought the self-authoring suite, like both me and my wife did. We had like a 2-for-1 coupon thing. And she's been working on it. I've still never opened the program yet. So it's kind of weird that I'm co-hosting a channel that one of the main themes is encouraging people in self-authoring. Andrew, the guy who started the channel, has done the program. Ryan's done the program. Okay, I'll get to that in a second. So Ryan's done the self-authoring. And if you go back and look at the channel videos, you'll be able to see a couple videos Ryan's done about the self-authoring. Myself, I haven't done it yet. I have a good idea of a lot of what it's about. And I intend to do it at some point as well, just to learn more about it. But for you, what is your purpose for doing self-authoring? Is there something in particular? And yeah, just keep in mind that if you decide to do the self-authoring and you want to come on and talk about what you found helpful, what you didn't, just write to the channel at sortingmyselfout0@gmail.com. And we will, yeah, we can set up a time that you come on and discuss your self-authoring if you're interested. So, Alan Barboza, who's fucking awesome. You're around the channel quite a bit. I really appreciate all your feedback, man. Do I have any compulsions? Not sure exactly what, like, people can mean such different things by compulsions. Aren't we all filled with compulsions? Do you mean, do I have any sort of real OCD behavior? Or, yeah, I guess I don't understand the specific connotations of how you're using that. Can you expand on that, exactly what you mean? All right, hey, Andrew's here. So to whoever I was speaking to before, this Andrew Jokum is the guy who started this channel. And he says the self-authoring program helped me to change my life story and life meaning. I no longer have a sob story. And yeah, I can attest to that, and Andrew took down all his personal stuff, so you won't be able to go back and watch his journey. But a lot of the people who've been subscribed for a while have seen it. And even though he's dropped out of the public light and hasn't been giving people a lot more updates, while there's still things he's working on, and I don't want to give away any personal details, just Andrew is doing really well in a bunch of the things that he set out for himself. And I see definite improvement in Andrew from doing the self-authoring, although at the same time, he has studied so many other things as well. And so it's not just the self-authoring, it's the culmination of everything else that he's been doing. What happened to the bald guy? Okay, so that's just who I was talking about. The bald guy who used to run the channel is Andrew Jokum, who is here now, serving as a moderator. So yeah, he decided to take his life more private, and he's got some awesome stuff going on, and he wants to really be able to fully engage in life without worrying about sharing it with the public. And so he asked me and Ryan Hallsapple to take over the channel for him. Give me some enlightening nuggets. Okay, and so this is from Pedraic, who... Yeah, so you're new to all this. Well, the most foundational things... So I don't know how much of Jay Jordan you've been listening to. For me, the two most foundational things are you can't put enough importance on honesty. It's... If you take a sacred vow of honesty, and again, I don't know if you're spiritual or if you're more on the Sam Harris end or whatnot, but whatever to you is the most powerful... Yeah, just even if you're not religious, think of it as taking a sacred vow of honesty, and that is going to unlock everything else. Aside from that, the decision as to whether or not God's good, which we've all heard JP say, like you've got to decide if existence is meaningful or not. You have to decide if God is good or not. If you stick to God is good and I am going to look for how, and you're honest and just aiming upward, that's going to get you everywhere you need to go eventually. Yeah. So Robert saying, what, that's crazy. Glad to hear. Thanks for answering. Yeah. And Andrew has been discussing with us recently coming back on again. I think part of it is he's not totally sure how much he wants to share or not, but there's at least a chance that Andrew will be back on for an update sometime soon. Just because it's 1 a.m., you want to go to bed. Just honesty. Yeah, like I said, I came on to hear more about you guys than myself. I didn't feel I had a lot to say. But yeah, go to bed. Don't worry about catching the rest of this. I'm not worth losing sleep over. But if you're curious, there's, I think about the past 2 months, we've been putting out material. You can go look back through things, and maybe you can pop on live sometime earlier in the day. Yeah, more often Lunatic Live, just me as late at night, although not exclusively. But me and Ryan come on live a fair amount, the two of us. So, yeah, we can talk more some other time. And no, it's not that honesty is the only thing I have to say. I'm just not feeling overly verbally eloquent at the moment. And I don't know what level you're at or what exactly you need to hear. So I decided to start with the most basics. But have a good night, and maybe we will see you on here again sometime. So we have 7 people watching, and yeah, like I said before, why you here? So people who have clicked in, what did you click on for? So obviously Robert was clicking on expecting to see Andrew, perhaps. Oh, okay, wait. I seem to have missed a question. Jacob Egan says, how long have I been bipolar? Since 2006. So 13 years. So does anyone else have anything they want to say? So Taryn Marine says hello. Hello. And Grizz says, because I'm exploring yourself and learning things I have. You're learning things I haven't. Okay. So Grizz clicked on because he has gotten curious about this particular lunatic who seems to have learned some things you haven't, which I expect means you've learned quite a bit I haven't. Yeah, and I don't know if I should have come on live or not at the moment, because I really don't feel like I have much to say. I thought maybe if I wasn't talking so much, people would feel like talking more themselves. So Taryn, I have diagnosis also, but I do not trust them. Oh yeah, when I say I'm bipolar, that doesn't mean that I define bipolar the way other people do. Like the same thing with God. I can understand how Peterson doesn't like to answer the question, where he wants you to define each term first before he answers the question, do you believe in God? Because my way is kind of a similar like trick to where I would have often answered, yes, I believe in God, but I don't know what God is. I'm still discovering that. And so I discuss God with people, and I'm fine to recognize that my definitions of God are not going to be the same as the definitions of the God, like of the person I'm talking to. But I don't need to also argue with them over which of us is correct. I have no problem with somebody who their own framework of the world is medical and diagnostic, where they think I am bipolar, and that means I'm mentally ill, and somebody who believes there's nothing to anything metaphysical or spiritual. I'm fine that that's how they define me. I don't need to control what other people think of me. And I would say to them, yes, I'm a bipolar person. Like if to you the bipolar person is that, like, yeah, that's what I am. And I don't need to control their definition of it. For me, I don't know what exactly bipolar is. I try to look at it through as many lenses as possible. So I don't know. Does bipolar just mean I'm a shaman in a time that doesn't know what to do with shaman? Yeah, so I don't mind that particular label, but I don't allow labels to define me in any way. The same way that the label of me being a man, I don't feel any need to be macho or to conform to men's interests. So yeah, the diagnosis doesn't bother me at all. Although I don't know if you said what exactly was your diagnosis. Oh, and Grizz, didn't you ask me about connections to angels a while ago? And I had said something about reaching out to them or making some first step. Did you ever do anything? Did you ever make any attempt to reach out to an angel? Okay, so Andrew's watching because he loves to hear me talk, and he's excited to see me help people sort themselves out. Okay, awesome. And yeah, that's obvious, but you don't quite count as a viewer, man. You're like one of my closest friends, even though we've never met. But yeah, so you like watching me help people sort themselves out. I don't know if I'll do any of this tonight because, yeah, I wasn't feeling particularly talkative. I was interested in hearing more from you guys at the moment. Okay, so Wiggs is talking to Andrew, but I'm going to share it with everyone. To me, one of the best parts of self-improvement is shedding self-pity. Yeah. Yeah, I like that. So Taryn says a solid agnostic answer, open to the idea. So that's probably what I was just saying about God. I have an agnostic within me. Like, I don't see myself or any of you, honestly, as sort of that single entity, that single mind that we often try to reduce ourselves to. We all contain multitudes. I've got an agnostic within me, but no, I really believe in God. It's not that I don't know if there's a God, although there's the agnostic part that doesn't. Still, overall, I definitely believe in a God. I just don't know the nature of that God, and I am working to find it out. And I don't want to criticize anyone else, because every path is different, and there's a purpose to what I'm just going to say I avoid. Like, it's an experience that some people need, and it gives you a lot of stability. But a lot of people sort of say they believe in a God and pick the God they believe in, and like they define it. As soon as you know what God is, you're going to stop learning anything else about God. As soon as you know something, you're never going to be looking to learn where you're wrong or any of that. So it's not like agnostic in the sense of, I don't think God's, yeah, I see more evidence that God, I'm sure God's there. Although perhaps God is just the highest ideal and the sum total of physical reality. Perhaps the only conscious aspect of God arises from us. But there's something there. I just don't know exactly what it is. So, someone has been diagnosed with chronic depression. Sometimes I feel like I'm losing grasp of my mind. With isolation, fear of memory. Okay, so I've had tons of extended suicidal depression. That's a difficult thing to go through. And yeah, so in case you don't know, I've also lost total control of my mind. I've had complete psychotic breaks a couple times that lasted extended periods, hospitalized against my will. So I can identify with all that shit. And that seems like something that's going to be pretty difficult for you to describe in short messages. Loss of speech, brain fog. Looking for a job right now, really difficult when struggling with panic attacks. I have that as well. I don't fucking leave my house almost ever. I'm a total hermit. Strained, painful relationship with my dad, not understanding what I'm going through. Okay, if you want to write to the channel, sortingmyselfout0@gmail.com. It'll be my partner Ryan handles the emails because that's easier on me. And then like he just loops me in on the conversation. But if you're interested in having a talk sometime, like if you're dealing with really serious mental issues, we could have a talk sometime. Just write to the channel. And I think that would be more productive than trying to do too much through these messages. So thank you to Asia Winchester for sharing that. And so I have, okay, so that's why you came on, because I said Lunatic Live, and you're struggling with some pretty serious mental health issues. So you were drawn to see what this lunatic was rambling about. And Taryn Marine schizophrenia, or bipolar with psychotic features. Yeah, I'm bipolar type 1 with psychotic features. So if anyone was drawn to this live stream because you're like, well, crazy, don't worry. I've been extremely suicidal. I've been locked up against my will in total psychotic delusions. I won't judge anything you have to say. And if there's anything I can do through a simple conversation to help you guys out, write into the channel and maybe we can talk face to face online sometime. All right, so Alan Barboza's said some things here. I looked in Google. Compulsion is an irresistible urge to behave in a certain way, especially against one's constant wishes. One's conscious wishes. Okay, so sometimes I will have compulsions, like in a bipolar rage when I'm furious. I have this compulsion to punch myself in the head, also to break things and to punch walls, although I'm never violent towards other people. And even when it comes to breaking things, I won't break other people's shit. It's if I'm in my own house. But sometimes I do have to fight the compulsion, or some mornings in the winter when I'm really, really depressed, life's too hard, and I have no fucking energy. And it's that first thing in the morning, I got to go out into the woodshed, bring in some wood for the wood stove. And for some reason, like the effort it takes to go do that and not wanting to do it fills me with a compulsion to smash every window in my house and let the fire go out. Yeah, so I do sometimes deal with destructive compulsions that I have to keep under control. At the moment, I'm not experiencing any compulsions. And so especially since your definition was just especially things that aren't good for you, I would say it's that kind of thing that I encounter sometimes. On the other hand, the sort of perhaps light side of compulsions, also I feel compelled to do many things. Like when manic, sometimes I feel this huge compulsion to just get out into the sunshine and meditate, to compulsions to interact with my guardian angel, to perform a ritual, to meditate, to read. I find they do come up as very strong compulsions. But since those are all things that aren't against my better judgment, that wasn't so much what you were talking about. Okay. Oh, you retracted some other messages. So I'm not sure exactly what you said there, but... Oh, okay, Grizz, it seems here you're answering when I asked about if you reached out to an angel of your own. I literally did, and it's weird how weird it feels when you take yourself seriously when you try stuff like that. Huh. This makes me really curious to know more about you. Like, are you a believer? And if so, any particular religion? Or are you more agnostic, looking to explore this other side? And Taryn Marine, honestly, I think it's PTSD layered with other traumas and bad diagnoses and worse meds. So I don't take those. Yeah, other than like I have a prescription for sleeping pills, and I take like just over the counter melatonin. Other than that, I don't take any pharmaceuticals. I was on all kinds of meds in the past, but I haven't been on any meds other than my sleeping pills in 2 years almost. And yeah, I had some post-traumatic stress disorder involved with getting hit by a bus right when I first became bipolar. But yeah, Grizz, I'd love to hear more because I know it. Yeah, it's pretty wild to step into taking the metaphysical seriously, moving into a state of strong enough belief to be interacting with it. It's kind of like stepping into a book or a movie. All right, so Wiggs says taking self-improvement seriously necessitates owning your own failures or issues and taking the reins, no matter your lot, as it is all you can do. Yeah. And I would say that also falls into the importance of honesty, both with other people, with ourselves, and with God, our guides, our angels, whatever else there is. Absolute honesty in every way means you do have to take seriously your own faults and failures, not to deny them, to try to talk your way out of it or justify them, but just to be honest about what they are. So Ryan Tom says, God is truth. Yeah, I like that statement. I'm always looking to my two fundamental things are truth and honesty, and taking the side of God and the good. Okay, so Grizz is asking, when my psych delusions got bad, were they always the apocalypse themed? Yes. So I've only twice had the total psychosis, like completely fucking take over and go for months and months. Both times, absolutely apocalypse themed. First one through. So I was, it was 2006. So I was 27. It was before my 28th birthday. Yeah, so I was 27, that age when a lot of people die. Peterson says the Peter Pan thing, that artists that aren't ready to grow up die at 27. I don't think I was ready to grow up either. And rather than dying, though, I snapped. And at my first psychotic break, I'd never really used the internet much at all. Going through college, I barely used the internet. I hand wrote the majority of my papers, even though that wasn't allowed. I've always had a good way of being the exception to the rule. And I was raised Catholic, so I was an altar boy for years and years and years. Most of my childhood, it was like church every single week. And my first psychotic break involved the Revelation theme, that the end of the world was coming in the purely Christian version of it. My second psychotic break, which started in like 2008, then continued 2009 for like right up to the fall. It again was apocalypse themed. It still involved like a lot of angels and Christian stuff incorporated. But at that point, I had the internet for the first time in my life. So I got caught up in the 2012 stuff, in a lot of really new age stuff. And I got caught up in, again, this Revelation, but not strictly caught up in the Catholic view of it, but more in the all that craziness surrounding 2012. So both of those were end of the world delusions. And my second one, like, it went on and on until at the end, it had been months and months and months of me barely eating, barely sleeping. And at the end, it's like it had been weeks of, I would eat a couple crackers every other day. I would be sleeping 5-10 minutes every other day. And at the end, there was a good 3 or 4 days I hadn't eaten a thing, hadn't slept at all, and I experienced the end of the world. It was like the world outside of my house was unmade. It was as if the house that I was in, and even my own physical form, were only not unmade because I was actively holding on to them. Like, I felt like I had to actually create the space around me. At times I had the delusion my house was just floating in deep space. At other times I could see the outside world, but I thought it was this illusion where if I stepped off my front porch, I would just plummet into the void. And that accumulated with eventually being taken down by the cops quite roughly and dragged in, again, into an insane asylum. Since then, it's like I've never had a psychotic break, but my mania gets up to the point where I'm experiencing a certain amount of otherworldliness. After my second cycle, so after that intense end of the world experience, I had about a 2-year depression. And as I came out of that and went into my next mania, that was when my archangel introduced itself to me. And I was worried that I was tipping over into total psychosis at that point. But the angel assured me I wouldn't. And when I discussed the angel, why I was having all of this revelation apocalypse themed shit, did it mean that the end of the world's coming? Which I do now feel we are in the end of the world. Just what exactly does that mean? What is the world? But I was told that for all intents and purposes, I've been through the end of the world already. And whatever end of the world, whatever apocalypse the world is experiencing, isn't my apocalypse. I've been through my own personal apocalypse. Because, like sometimes Jordan Peterson will say, what's more real, this material world or the myths, the symbols, the archetypes, your actual experience? So I have actually experienced the end of the world. I saw the sun turn into the moon and back again. I saw the devil send police to kill me. I offered myself up for martyrdom. And absolutely, that was the end of the world for me. I've never been the same since then. And I'm an entirely different person living in an entirely different world now. I have no idea how long I just rambled about that. Fucking these sleeping pills have made me particularly loopy tonight. So sorry if none of this is making sense. Okay. I'm pretty scared about all the bullshit with red flag laws and newest APA guidelines. So I don't know if this is the sleeping pills making me not understand that, but I don't know what the red flag laws are or the newest APA guidelines. So yeah, I don't know what you're talking about, although maybe if I was in a different state of mind, I could. I can't tell if I'm just not accessing the understanding of that or if I don't know what that shit is. Okay, Grizz here. Oh, so he always went agnostic because he was trained to hate being wrong. But these days, if I'm honest about it, I'm so much closer to Gnostic than agnostic. All right. You were trained to hate being wrong. You know what? I don't want to get too much into giving advice. I don't think I'm fucking right about anything. I'm just sharing my fucking ideas on this. But you said you tuned in to learn more about what I know that you don't. So you want to hear what I know. I'm not saying what I know is right. The first thing I picked out of that was trained to hate being wrong. In my personal experience, it's the emperor who tells you to give in to your hate. Yeah, there's strength there. Yes, there's an adrenaline rush. You can get really high on hatred, but I decided to give it up completely. I don't hate anything. I don't even hate hatred. For the people who have hatred as an aspect of this reality, I don't even hate hatred. I know it serves its purpose. Seems to me its purpose is it's something you're to learn not to indulge in. Hating anything I find counterproductive. But in particular, to hate being wrong, that's fucked up, that people trained you to hate being wrong. Okay, if you're always right, you're not learning a fucking thing. And in fact, everyone who says they're always right what that means is they're always wrong and never learning anything, because we're all wrong. Right and wrong is not this. It's not like in math where 2 + 2 = 4. It's either right or wrong. We move forward by learning where we're wrong and improving it. When we aim for truth and honesty, when we aim for anything, we do it wrong. And when we recognize being wrong. So it's not that someone who says they're never wrong, it's not that they're never wrong. It's that they never recognize they're wrong. When you're wrong, you should be thrilled to find out where you're wrong. Because wherever you're wrong, that's where you're hurting yourself. And if you think it's right, you're just going to continue doing it. Being wrong is wonderful. The more often you can be wrong, especially like try something out, have an idea, as many ideas as you can, and look honestly for as many of them as you can that are wrong. Every single idea you have that you can find out is wrong and why pushes you that much further along. So, also, though, okay, so agnostic's fair because you don't want to be wrong. Although, again, I think being wrong is good. But yeah, to be Gnostic, and I mean, there's different levels of it. There's some people who say they're Gnostic, and what they really mean is they're 99% atheist, but willing to admit they don't fully know. And then there's a kind of Gnostic, agnostic, where you do sense God. You do look for that gnosis, that direct knowing. But you remain agnostic about the truth of it because you know that everything you're experiencing is being filtered through yourself, is being altered, and that you're losing something. So you can be Gnostic and be searching for God and experiencing God while realizing the entire time that you're wrong about God and looking for where you're wrong to try to correct it. But yeah, if you're uncomfortable with being wrong, it can make it different to get into the more mystical states. You almost need to sort of access that inner child and look at the truth of myth or the truth hidden in fiction. Don't worry about being right or wrong. Treat it like stepping into a game. And then you may be more comfortable exploring that level of faith that it takes to connect to whatever these are, whether they're archetypes deep inside us, components of our psyche, or whether they are genuinely entities or energies outside ourselves. Okay, I seem to have lots. Oh, okay. So George says, do you hear voices or engage in conversation with other persons? I don't hear voices in the audio sense. Like, it's not like with a lot of schizophrenics where they actually hear a voice. Similar to the way Alan Moore describes the Vernals interacting with the builders in his book Jerusalem. I will refer to speaking to things because that's easier, but it's as though a thought is placed into my head that unfolds, and I don't quite hear it audio, but it's as if, you know how like when you hear something, you've got the actual audio signal, and then you've got the words that makes you think inside your mind. Without the simulation of the audio signal, I can get words or phrases in my mind or thoughts that are not quite linguistically defined. So sort of those thoughts, I'm blanking, left, right, but is it the left brain is like the communicates in language and the right brain more in symbols, or these wordless thoughts? I get a lot of communication that are sort of these wordless thoughts. Also, I will, aside from trying to talk to other entities, I will also create, I will have personalities within myself where it's either different parts of myself communicating, or sometimes if I want to explore an idea, like compare Jordan Peterson's ideas to Alan Moore's ideas, I will create an avatar for Jordan Peterson, which is like my understanding of him. And I will summon up almost like a servitor, but not that I'm giving it life. It's a part of me, and Alan Moore as well. And I will have a discussion with the three of them. Although there, I don't feel like I'm psychically connecting to Jordan Peterson and Alan Moore. I am creating representations of them that have my understanding of their ideas, and will have dialogues with people in my head quite a bit. Okay, so Andrew's saying, I wonder how end of the world delusions feel for non-Christians. I had similar delusions and it was all filtered through a Christian lens. So yeah, my first one was all filtered mostly through Christian, although now that I think of it, during that break, I also got interested in voodoo temporarily. Although voodoo does tie into Christianity to a certain degree, with the Arcadians moving down to join the Cajuns. But in my second, like, it was more, if you think of the Mayan calendar, and it seems a lot of societies had ideas about various forms of apocalypse, or isn't it the Hindus who have that greater time wheel where you move into a golden age, you move into an age of forgetting, you move into a dark age, and then again it flips into the golden age. So they also have ends of eras. All right, let's see, what did I miss here? So, how do I get through the day when it gets difficult? I feel like I'm having memory issues, and I don't know if it's from anxiety or depression, but sometimes I experience brain fog and it's difficult to talk. Okay, so I get through the days when it's difficult differently depending what kind of difficulty it is. Am I dealing with anxiety and panic attacks? Am I dealing with too much stress, anger? Am I dealing with real world problems? Am I too manic and worried about going too far into that? Am I suicidally depressed? What can I say that might help you? Okay. The first is whatever it is. And I'm not keeping track of shit well here. I think maybe this was the same person who said something about depression, but okay, depression's shitty enough on its own. Anger's shitty enough on its own. All these negative emotions are bad enough on their own. But then on top of that, we can get upset about the emotion itself. So you can be depressed and you can accept that you're depressed and make the best of it. Or you can be depressed and you can rail against it, where I shouldn't be depressed. And that can just spiral so badly, because now you've got all the problems of depression and you're upset about being depressed. That's really easily going to lead into you beating up on yourself, and you're a worthless piece of shit because you're depressed and you shouldn't be depressed. If you can accept, I know it's harder with these things inside of us, but it's like the way I could break my leg and say someone else did something to me that caused me to break my legs. There's even someone to blame. I can say it's unjust, My leg shouldn't be broken. I can be upset about every moment of pain. And then even if my wife and kids come over to spend time with me and are being delightful, I can be a miserable son of a bitch the whole way through that. On the other hand, if when I broke my leg, and even someone else's fault, if I forgive them, if I accept that I have a broken leg, then I can just deal with the pain of it. And I don't have to deal with any of the fighting over it. And it would be possible to have a broken leg and have my wife and kids come over where I actually enjoy the moment. And where, yes, there's still the pain in my leg, but I'm not upset about it. I'm not letting it stop me from doing other things. So sometimes I find you have to treat depression like if I throw my back out, I know it's going to take a bit of time to heal. I don't fight that I just threw my back out. I know it's going to be a few days of really bad pain. And again, if I can accept it, I can make the most of that. But if I'm going to be miserable about it the whole time, and so I try to treat my depression or other extreme states like that. If I can not get upset about being depressed and just be depressed, the same way that sometimes you can have some sort of physical pain, thrown out back or a broken leg. But if some good friends come over, good conversation gets going, you're actually happy in spite of the pain. I can get to where I'm depressed. I have all the physical symptoms. I can feel the low mood. There's even can be that suicidal part of me, kind of at the back, trying to whisper shitty stuff. And yet still, I can enjoy myself despite that. I can be half happy and half depressed at the same time. It comes from accepting it while it's there. Not fighting it, but also not holding on to it, letting it flow away when it can. Or here's another example about getting upset about things. And Sam Harris will talk about this sometimes. When you get mad, you actually have a choice of how mad you want to stay. It kind of sounds like bullshit. But recently I had something happen, and I got ripped off $200. And right from, at first I wasn't sure, because it was I ordered something from just a individual person. I didn't have eBay backing it or anything, but I was trusting the goodness of people, which I've done a bunch of times before, and it's always gone well. I let my guard down. And it's funny because even after I made the deal, or as I was making it, I had this weird feeling, but I ignored it. And there's a brief period where I wasn't sure if this is just he hasn't gotten back to me or it's gotten lost in the mail, or I wasn't sure if I was ripped off or not. And I decided that if I did just get ripped off, I'm not going to get upset about it. I'm going to forgive the person instantly, and I am going to wish them blessings and love. And not that I want to encourage that behavior, but I even wanted to send forgiveness and blessings and love that perhaps this will be the last time they rip anyone off. And maybe they desperately need that money. And I was surprised with myself. When I was sure I'd absolutely been ripped off, I had nothing more than 1 or 2 seconds of anger. And I was able to put it in perspective. Occasionally after that, same thing. A few seconds of anger would come up at the most, but I never let that go beyond that. I never hated the person. I didn't get upset about the loss. And yeah, I did some time praying for them and wishing them the best. And it made the entire experience more pleasant. It's much better to get ripped off and treat it that way than to turn into an angry asshole for 2 weeks after that. I don't know what that came off of. I just rambled and rambled and rambled from I don't know what. Okay, do I ever work out so much or get so physically tired that my brain clears or calms down? Uh, yeah, sometimes. Although often if it's like I've been doing a lot of physical work or exercising, yeah, my brain can sometimes calm down, or sometimes it can kick my brain into a hyper fast mode, but it tends not to be, it tends to burn up the anger or some of the negative emotions, so that even if my brain's going fast, it's about more positive shit usually after a lot of exercise. Yeah, so Grizz says, I learned agnostic as I don't know, don't commit. Atheist might be wrong, religious might be wrong, but not knowing can't be. Yeah, you can look at it that right, that saying I don't know means you can't be wrong. On the other hand, if deep down you do know, then you're wrong. Yeah, if deep down you do know, you're wrong because you're claiming you don't know and you do. But again, we don't know if deep down you know or not. All right, so Mercury, can you tell a little about your daily routine? Do you spend a lot of time on the internet? Do you read every day? Any writing, music, movies? My days can be very different, sometimes just one day to the next, some day depending on time of year. I will fall into short term patterns for a while. Um, but it can be very, very different, especially winter me, summer me are very different. I do spend a lot of time on the internet, not social media though. I sort of, well, before recently, I use the internet as like a library, a television station, a movie theater, and a radio station. It's mostly consuming content, movies, lectures, television shows, movies, reading articles. Um, I go through periods where I read every single day, and I go through periods where I barely read. No, I'm not doing any writing. I will occasionally write a little poem or something, but I'm avoiding writing at the moment due to its power, and I'm not sure I'm ready for it yet. I love music, and I used to play in a couple punk bands, but I have not been doing any music in quite a while. Movies, I love movies. I haven't watched many lately. Also, I used to be involved a little bit in independent filmmaking. I worked with Trauma Films. I did special effects makeup and had a very small part in Poultrygeist, Night of the Chicken Dead. Okay, so Okay, yeah, so I don't know much about the American Psychiatric Association and the red flag laws. I just don't know much about that at all. One, I'm Canadian. Two, I avoid systems as much as possible. And I don't pay much attention to all of that lately at all. Okay, so sorry for being too personal. I don't know if that was too personal or not. I didn't have any problem with it. The general meaning of the question is, what do I think are the best habits to cultivate? Well, that will depend on you. Like, if you are a dairy farmer or a beatnik poet, the best habits are going to be very different. Reading habits I enjoy. I enjoy fiction, like both in reading. Like I do read some nonfiction, but I love fiction, both in film, in television, and the majority of the reading I've done is fiction. But I love indulging in fiction, and I love indulging my own imagination. I love meditation. Exercise can be excellent. Spending time in nature can be excellent. I'm more of an introvert, but for a lot of people, being involved in the community, regular activities, being a part of a social group or clubs can be very important. Okay, here's the best habits to cultivate. First of all, I'm going to go back to honesty. Just decide that you're not going to wear out your decision fatigue anymore, and that from now on, you never decide whether to lie or not. You just look at how you're going to tell the truth. Shit, I lost what was good. Okay, next. Cultivate the habit of being mindful. Be aware of what is coming into your mind and choose or reject every thought. So we can fall into a pattern of every thought that occurs to us. We take it as though it is our own thought, and we take it as though it's true. If you can cultivate a habit of noticing what you're thinking at all times, also notice your emotional state. You do that for a while and you'll start to notice how much your emotional state affects your thinking. You'll notice how different emotional states come with their own catchphrases they repeat. But get into the habit not of assuming that the first thing you think is right or is even coming from you. It might be coming from like programming, bad habit. It may be coming from some sort of complex within yourself or subpersonality that isn't wise to listen to. So I would cultivate the habit of introspection, mindfulness, and of choosing or denying every thought. And like, so for instance, I can wake up with a feeling of, fuck, I want to kill myself. Life is not worth living. And I very quickly notice that and evaluate it and change it to, right now it feels like I want to kill myself and life is not worth living. But I reject that thought. I do not believe it. It is a feeling I have right now, not my belief. So that's probably not so much the kind of habits you were thinking about. But those have been the most important habits for me, really. So when you create a servitor, it's not creating a servitor, because creating a servitor is creating something, sort of real. I was using that as a metaphor. If Jordan Peterson or Alan Moore, do they look and sound like them? Peterson does. Alan Moore sometimes does. And sometimes Alan Moore merges with his god Glycon. And what I get is I've started calling it Glymore. It's like if you were to take Alan Moore's face and merge it with Glycon, so that you've got this giant serpent with the semi-human face, but Alan Moore's big beard and wild hair. Okay, so Cosmos of Compassion. A few questions you'd like to converse about, if I'm willing. I mentioned a possible face-to-face online conversation. Would that be possible to do? Yeah. And so the way, if anyone wants to come onto the channel and either talk to just me, just Ryan, or both of us, just write to sortingmyselfout0@gmail.com, or I assume it's on the channel page. Ryan's the one who goes through all those emails and shit. And if anyone's writing anything to me, he passes it on. And if you do feel like coming on and talking to one or both of us, it'll be like you'll be talking to Ryan, he'll check with me, and he'll schedule something and set all that up. So yeah, just write into the channel, let them know who you want to talk to or both and what you want to talk about. Oh, Andrew answered that right after. Thanks, Andrew. So the stream isn't working and you're tired of trying to figure all this out? Sorry, the stream's not working. I am extremely shitty with computers. So I could have I don't know if there's settings I have wrong or what. I'm not technologically inclined whatsoever. I can barely use my computer. Oh, okay, good. Liked that stuff about habits. Good. I wasn't sure if I was totally off mark there. Okay, here's a good one. Has my bipolar ever altered my sense of time? Or have I experienced weird sensations of feeling like I'm dead, losing sense of self, personality, or maybe not being able to recognize others? Yeah, sense of time can go all over the fucking place for me now. And yeah, I can be horrible with, I can talk to someone 2 days ago, and when I go to bring the conversation up, I'm not sure if it was 2 days ago or like 2 weeks ago. My sense of time can get really bad for that shit. Also, sometimes time seems to really slow down for me, and it's as if my brain's moving so much faster that I'm shocked how little time is passing. And the reverse can happen, where it feels to me like I've just been sitting for half an hour, thinking or maybe meditating, and like just hours go by. So it's messed with my sense of time in a lot of ways. I experience, okay, I've never felt I'm dead. Losing sense of self or personality. Yeah, like you connect more to that awareness behind the conscious mind. I just have tons of different altered states I go into that plays with all that kind of stuff. Not being able to recognize others is not something I've had that I can think of. Holy shit. So Alan says, I'll definitely go back to the stream later to transcribe all the answer. Well, fuck. I'm glad you found it helpful enough that you want to do that. Okay, and after you go over the answer, because again, keep in mind, you'll get different info out of me at different times. Like I've never promised consistency, but I might have a whole other series of things to add to that in a different state of mind. So feel free to ask it again sometime, or or if you feel like coming on the channel and having a talk sometime and following up on this, just write into Ryan. Okay, so Cosmos of Compassion says he's going to write in, and I guess we'll be having a talk sometime. Now, you're using emojis, and I don't know what emojis mean. I'm completely out of touch with internet culture. That looks like hands praying, fire, purple heart, blue box, and some stars. I don't know exactly what that means, although prayers and love are cool. Oh, okay, Grizz says, one stream when you were with Ryan, I dropped the link to what I called JBP rejecting the Holy Spirit. Did he pass the link on to you? No, it either slipped his mind or he passed it on to me and I totally forgot. But no, I was looking forward to seeing that link, and I still haven't seen it. So, okay, so I'll ask Ryan. He's so fucking busy. He's in school and dealing with so much shit. Maybe he just hasn't gotten around to it yet. But yeah, I definitely want to see that. Also, I don't think he's on now. Hey, yeah, if you can find it again, that'd be awesome. Even just post it in the comments under this live stream after it goes up. Because I think, yeah, someone said they wanted to come back to this. So even though I started this one again thinking I was going to delete it, I guess I'll leave this up. Because there's some points in this nonsense that some people are finding useful. So if you put it in the comments, I'll definitely see it. And even though I don't usually respond to comments, any comments that go up within the first day or two, I definitely read them all. And I do even try to occasionally, if other comments have built up later, go back to them. So even though I'm not responding a lot, I'm reading almost all, if not all, the comments. Oh, and yeah, so I don't think they're on now, but somebody had repeatedly brought up, like when I do live streams with Ryan, I don't see the chat bar. And I watched the past couple I did with him, like I just sort of looked through the chat bars after to see what had gone through. And someone, I can't remember who, keeps bringing up the Jordan Peterson dismantled video. By Europa something, or just keeps asking over and over if any of us have seen it. Yeah, I've totally watched that. I've watched a few videos criticizing them, and a few people have commented, watch Vox Day and Owen Benjamin. Yeah, I've listened to a couple hours of those guys. I watched Jordan Peterson dismantled. And when I get into somebody, I go out of my way to look up their critics. And so, yeah, whoever's posting that, like, thanks for sharing what you thought we should check out. Ryan hasn't watched that stuff because he just kind of doesn't feel like getting into that negativity. But I've watched it all, and so you don't have to keep asking us to look through it. There's nothing about those videos that disillusions me about Jordan Peterson. All right, so I think I am actually caught up with everything in the chat. Okay, so Alan's saying that he'd love to chat with us. Okay, yeah, you're the one who says now and then that speaking and writing's very hard. Is it that your first language is Polish? Am I remembering that right? Well, your messages are excellent. I replied to one saying that if you hadn't told me English was your second language, like your messages are better than some people that I think English is their first language. So with English as a second language, you're doing fine with your writing. And if you can speak even half as well as you can write, we'll have no problem having a conversation. I don't mind speaking to somebody where English is this, like, yeah, it makes the whole conversation go just a little slower. But if you're not too nervous to have a conversation outside of your first language, don't let that stop you at all. I'm happy to let you try to rephrase things over and over again. And yeah, I don't think we should let that barrier stop us from talking if you're interested in talking. Me and Ryan are both very patient, understanding people. And yeah, from the way you write, I would be shocked if we weren't able to have a good conversation. Wow, I've been doing this for over an hour already. Still 12 people watching. Does anyone else have anything they want to say? Or someone says stream's working again. All right, cool. All right. Cosmos of Compassion. Question. Am I really crazy or spiritual? Hard to say without knowing me, but how do you define the two, spiritual and crazy? And have you heard of Mark Passio? Okay, is Mark Passio the guy? He's big into like ancient laws, like sacred laws. Talks about a lot about Illuminati symbolism. I think I watched a bunch of Mark Passio stuff in the past. But yeah, are insanity or metaphysics? Is there a spiritual component to this? Are some schizophrenics, bipolars, or other mentally ill people just shamans without the proper training, visionaries that have gone too close to the sun without guidance? I don't know which it is. I try to look at it through both lenses. And yeah, rather than picking like, hey, am I going to look at this scientifically, rationally, from the, medical perspective? Am I going to look at it from the spiritual perspective or shamanic perspective? I don't pick between the two. I learn everything I can about every interesting way of looking at it. And I juggle the various philosophies and try to accumulate as many lenses as possible through which to look at it. Good faith. Is acting in good faith the key? I don't know that it's the key, but it's one of them. Like from what I've seen, good faith conversations are the best conversations out there. Yeah, and if we all were to just act in good faith, if we were all just honestly trying to do the best we could, we would sort everything out. Okay, so Mark Passio, former Satanist, yeah. Natural law never really says much. Yeah, I listened to a bunch of his stuff years ago. Probably if I watched a little more would come back to me. I remember thinking that some of his stuff was quite interesting and some didn't fully vibe with me. Yeah, maybe I'll look into Mark Passio again because overall I thought he had, I thought he had a lot of really interesting things to say. I think maybe actually what turned me off on him was after listening to too much about Illuminati symbolism, and not that he was saying anything wrong, but just that I wasn't feeling like getting into all that shit. Talk more about the power of writing that I mentioned. Look up, like better than me, look up The Mindscape of Alan Moore. And it's just a documentary somebody did on Alan Moore that goes over his life story. And when he gets to how he got into magic, it's somewhat similar to how I did as well. And he will he'll speak much more eloquently about how in many of its earliest forms, magic was described as the art. And language itself is magical. Words are magical. Like, in fact, The amount of power you guys are giving to me just by sitting there and listening to me. Now, I'm acting in good faith. I'm doing the best I can, and I'm aware of the power of words. I'm not as careful with my speech as I should be, but I'm definitely aware of the power of it. But like, just by sitting here listening to me, I can put anything in your mind. A cute purple bunny with an emerald green vest. I can suggest to you to visualize that, and you won't be able to help it. And now, by telling you that that bunny loves you so much and is just happy to be there in your head, that could feel nice. But I won't. I could do horrible things to that bunny. And I could make them happen in your head just by you listening to it. I could have a profound effect on you. The written word is even stronger. Like JP, Jordan does a really good job of delineating the more psychological, real world power of writing, how it allows you to define your thoughts, to get really sharp. You can work longer on a piece of writing than on just what's coming out. And so writing can be even more powerful. And writing's fucking magic. Like, think how it would look to somebody with no concept of writing. That you sitting and staring at a whole bunch of squiggles can teach you just about anything. I can create a realm inside my head, make the proper squiggles on a piece of paper, and you 100 years later, 10,000 miles away, as long as you speak the same language, can open that up, observe those words, and that kingdom will come to life inside you. Writing is just incredibly powerful. To the point where it's best to look at writing as magic, because then you take it as seriously as it is. But writing changes the world. Writing changes our internal experiences. Fantastically powerful, both just like Jordan Peterson will go over the whole just psychological real world power of writing. Take all of that and add to it everything Alan Moore says about the magical power of writing, and put those together, and that's how I see writing. Okay, I believe intentions matter, so acting in good faith is important. Absolutely. I think our intentions matter, and it's not always just about the outcome. And so, like, you can take two actions, or you can take one action, and it can, what I did is either good or bad, depending on the surrounding circumstances and the attention. So I have a 3-year-old daughter, just the most gorgeous little angel you could imagine. If I were to grab her arm and pull on it so hard that I dislocated it, is that good or bad? The intention here matters strongly. If I'm upset and I'm pulling on her arm because I'm angry and she's walking too slow and I dislocate her arm, that is wrong. On the other hand, if there is a car coming and I am pulling on her arm that fast because that is the only way to get her out of the way of the car, me dislocating her was a good thing. Our intentions absolutely matter. Very, very, very much. Okay, a bit of this is back and forth among yourself. Okay, so someone's saying, I know you're open to magical thing. I've always been hesitant to make sigils due to interference with intrusive thoughts, regardless of my intentions. Yes, and I also have not done any sigils. I've done quite a bit of magic for quite a while now, but I don't do sigils. I don't know if I ever will or not, but no, I don't do sigils. And I think the most important aspects of magic come down to morality. Um, you don't want to be doing your magic for sex, for power over other people, or for unearned money. It can be like, I think that's fantastic that you are reluctant to make sigils because you don't want the wrong intention getting into it. So I do the majority of my magic for connection to the higher self, connection to God, to my guides. I do a little bit of practical magic, sort of like magic with real world effects, but very, very little, and not for control over other people. Most of the magic with a practical effect I do for the sake of other people. I always do it with the only if this is in line with the greater good, only if it is good for them, according to their higher self, their guides and angels. And I work very hard not to accidentally allow subconscious lower things to get involved in my magic. Yeah, so some of this is you guys talking to each other. Words are literally magic. That's why they call it spelling. Yes, absolutely, Grizz. To cast a spell is to spell, to arrange words. Or Alan Moore says the grimoire, the magic book, the grimoire. It's another way of saying grammar. Yeah, excellent point. So what's my take on channeling and channeled material? Well, I mean, if you look at Jung, even though he wasn't trying to channel outside entities, he was channeling the archetypes by going inward. So now, when a person is channeling, are they pretending to be reaching outward and receiving something from without, or are they accessing an archetype or a sub-personality within? I think some people who channel, it may be one, it may be the other. Some people, and it may be that some people do a sort of internal channeling. Some do actually channel outside entities. I'm very open-minded about all that. Whether it's coming from components of themselves or from actual outside entities doesn't mean it doesn't have value. However, you would want to very carefully evaluate the channeler. And a lot of people will try to impress you with what they know. Or success stories from other clients or whatnot. People will try to impress you with what they can do. I prefer to look at the nature of the channeler. So, does not the effect they're claiming it has on other people, not how other people feel helped by their teachings, but this channeler, since they began channeling, have they become more admirable? Not because of the channeling, but like, are they more honest? Are they kinder? Are they better? Are they more conscientious? Are they doing more good in the world? Has channeling made them the kind of person that you would look up to? On the other hand, are they arrogant? Are they greedy? Are they manipulative of others? So I would look more at that than their claims of their skill in channeling. So anytime it comes, and yeah, with everything, any doctor claiming to give a medicine they're using themselves, rather than what they go on and on about how it helped other people, how has it affected them? Do you want to be more like them? Okay, so someone's saying Mind and Magic has an entire course. He does a lot of just sigil stuff, tarot study, maybe not so much writing stuff because he's dyslexic. Yeah, I've listened to some Mind and Magic on and off. Seems like a fascinating guy. I don't know his stuff too well. And I've tried to develop my own system. So I'm not looking too in depth into other systems. I'm trying to a certain degree to do this my own way. And I do follow sort of my interest in synchronicity and my gut feelings. And I'll look into this for a while, look into that for a while. But I've never sort of taken the Mind and Magic course, and even when I watched it, I was watching it fairly casually and not trying to learn his method. But I think everything I said about choosing thoughts is something he teaches in that course. I think I heard him go over that as well, and so it's not necessarily that I got it from him, but it was something I'd been doing on my own already up to that point, and hearing him talk about it, sort of, he had a nice articulation of it, and I would say that when I heard him talk about it a few years ago, it reinvigorated my commitment to the process. All right, so how to come back from a horrible demonic attack or dark night of soul shadow self-sabotage. Accept it. Forgive it. Forgive yourself for going through it. Don't judge it. Face honestly all the horrible shit about yourself you realized in it. Try to learn what you can from it. And then reach out to whatever your higher power is. So if you're Christian, reach out to Jesus. Whatever else you are, reach out to whichever guides, angels, forces are there for you at the end of that dark night. I don't feel like that's enough of an answer for you. But yeah, we're just going to end up talking sometime soon, I think. And we can go into more into that later. Okay, so the FBI is asking, how do I feel about people who don't put their shopping cart into the shopping corral thing? How do I feel about them? I love them. I personally almost always put my shopping cart back. Oh, used to. I don't do my own shopping in like so long. I'm a total fucking hermit. I have my groceries dropped off. I don't go out into the real world very often. But as far as the people who don't put their shopping cart into the corral thing, you can assume the worst intentions. You can assume they think they're better than everyone else. They don't care how it inconveniences you. Or who knows? Maybe their dog just fucking died and they can't focus properly. Maybe they're having an anxiety attack and just need to walk straight to their car. Maybe they're oblivious to how that inconveniences everyone else and they think that is just the norm. But regardless of which reason, I just love them all. And even the ones who are assholes and are doing it because they're better than everyone else and they think you can put away your cart for them. I still love them and I don't judge them for that. Because the way I look at it, that's an unpleasant way to be. They're harming themselves more than other people. The distance they've put between themselves and you is more damaging to you than the cart that they put in your way. Or sorry, the distance they put between themselves and you is more damaging to them than the cart being in your way is damaging to you. And so I wish the best for those people. Okay, so I feel like after I had my psychotic break, I lost my soul. How does one get it back? Or is my life over? Is it too traumatic to come back from? Okay, even after my psychotic breaks, I never felt I lost my soul. So I'm not sure exactly what you're feeling there. Why do you feel you lost your soul? So first of all, I'm not convinced you lost it. You're saying you feel like you lost your soul. I'm reluctant to accept that you did this quickly. So perhaps you haven't lost your soul, but you feel that way. Regardless, yes, one can get it back. Is your life over? No. Is it too traumatic to come back from? No. So after my second total psychotic break, I went into a 2-year depression. I moved out into the country. I didn't tell any of my friends where I was moving. I told my siblings I couldn't handle visits. I lived near my parents, and they just dropped off supplies for me. I was where you are, where I just had no hope. I had decided I wasn't going to kill myself, but it was like I was just going to ride out a life of hell, it felt like at first. But for me, it took a couple years of almost total isolation to deal with it and come back. But I came back much, much further than I thought I would. At one point, in 2011, when I accepted that I was bipolar, whatever that means, it took me 5 years to accept it. I didn't know how to deal with it, and I gave up on life, as in my life as a part of society or any sort of life that people would consider actually living life. I was sure was over. And I just had 2 goals. It was, when I'm depressed, I can't kill myself. I'm going to ride this out. I'm not going to kill myself. And when I'm manic, the goal was just to control it enough that I don't go totally psychotic and have to be institutionalized. The first manic phase after that was difficult and scary. The next depression was also quite intense, but, and I wasn't sure I could do it. I was really trying to come to grips with the possibility that my life would just be being institutionalized over and over again. Suicidal depressions, just this horrible problem for my family and nothing but misery for me. But I held it together. I managed to succeed those two things. And it was like, if I could just do that, that was going to be enough. Don't kill myself. Don't have the kind of total psychotic break that causes a shitload of trouble for everyone else. After a couple years of that, like of having that under control, I eventually ended up meeting a girl, getting married. I've got kids. Although I don't leave my house often at all. And me and my wife live separate. The kids stay full time with my wife, and sometimes some or all of them sleep here. So I'm still a total hermit, but I've let a fair amount of the world in. I've got a family now. I've moved on to having, relationships with Andrew and Ryan that led to me doing this channel. And now here I am talking to you. So if I can go through this process, you can as well. Your path will be different, but it's like that Charles Bukowski poem. Your life is your life. Don't let it be clubbed into dank submission. Be on the watch. There are ways out. The gods will offer them. Shit, I don't know the whole thing, but I'm blanking out. But look up Tom Waits reads Charles Bukowski, and the Laughing Heart. Maybe look up the Laughing Heart with Tom Waits reading it. Hey, Grizz, so saying, consider this comment a large dollop of gratitude for you and yours, Andrew and Ryan, as well. Thanks, man. That means a lot. And consider this response a large dollop of gratitude for your participation. We've appreciated having you a part of the community here. Fuck, I've been on for almost 2 hours now. It's 3 a.m. I don't know how much more rambling I've got in me. Okay, so Cosmos of Compassion says, thanks for sharing. I have felt, experienced the same things. My dog accidentally died as a result of all this. It was my fault as a result from this psychotic break. Okay, yeah, understood. In psychotic breaks, we can make mistakes that are very difficult to deal with afterwards. I would forgive yourself for that if you can. So he drowned in your pool because you just woke up from a dead sleep and let him outside alone. I'd been sleeping for 4 months straight. I feel like my soul's gone. Life is over. Okay, well, that's not as bad as it could be. You didn't beat it to death because you thought it was possessed by a demon. It drowned in your pool. First of all, you don't know what would have happened otherwise. You're saying because of what you did, he drowned in the pool. But for all you know, if you'd been living better that week, you could have been taking him for a walk, taking perfect care of that dog, and he could have got hit by a car swerving off the road. I wouldn't blame yourself for that. I don't see it being helpful. I mean, like if you need to feel guilt or blame yourself for it to make you take your condition seriously and avoid having it happen again, then feel the guilt. Guilt serves a purpose, shows us what we shouldn't do again. But once you know not to do it again, especially if you figured why it happened and you're doing your best to alter your behavior, holding on to guilt over that isn't going to help you at all. I don't know if you've ever seen the TV show Breaking Bad, but when Jesse's in therapy and says to his therapist something like, yeah, you talk all this shit about forgiving yourself, but you have no idea what I've done. You wouldn't be telling me to forgive myself if you knew what I did. And the counselor shares his story of he was an alcoholic and he was doing cocaine. And I think the story is it was his birthday and he was really drunk and high on coke and he wanted more alcohol before the store closed and his wife wouldn't go to get it for him. So he, yelled at his wife and stormed out of the house too intoxicated to drive, got in his car to go get more alcohol, and backed over his young daughter. I realize this is just a story, but there's people who've done far worse than you. And I mean, you could say he was on a substance, but you were having a psychotic break. People who've done much worse than what you have done have forgiven themselves for it. Right. Alan says your words are powerful. It's like you're always careful to use them to help and relieve suffering. Yep. It's calculated or it's already natural to you. I wish I could always be like this to my family. This is natural to me now because it was calculated years and years and years ago. And it's like anything. You take something on where you calculate what it is you're trying to incorporate into your personality or learn to do. Then once you've done it long enough, it becomes natural. I do still consciously look at how best to do. Actually, no, often when I get talking on this shit, like I love everything Peterson says about choose your words carefully. I get caught up in this and I just talk from the best part of myself I can find to speak from. And I let shit flow out fairly unfiltered for long rambles. And then you'll see me stop and think more carefully. But yes, I am trying to help and relieve suffering. I'm trying to unite and not divide. I don't have an us or them. My pronoun preference is we, no matter what we're talking about. Other people can separate us into various groups. But to me, it's all we and it's all us. And it's what some of us over here are doing to some of us over there. And like Peterson said, you just take the side of the good in everything. Like the line between good and evil runs down the center of each of us. And with each and every one of us, I'm on the side of you that wants the good. I want the best for everyone. Yeah, Bukowski was a drunkard, but his writing is pretty awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for those inspiring words that I can get out of this somehow. You're welcome. I don't know how inspiring I've been, but if I can, I would love to help in any way I can. Oh, someone's saying they remember Tom Waits. I am obsessed with Tom Waits. I have every single one of his albums. And this tattoo, I'm not sure if you can see it, is off of Mule Variations. That's Tom Waits, a scarecrow with various items dropping out from under him. So yeah, I absolutely love Tom Waits. Genius. Okay. How do I remain social without resorting to isolation when you're in misery. I can't be isolated. I feel like I'm festering. How do you fight the hopelessness? When it comes over, nowhere to go. I don't fight the isolation. Again, from a Charles Bukowski. I don't know the whole thing, but he's listing. It's in Go All the Way. Go all the way. Or if you're going to try, go all the way. It may mean losing girlfriends, wives, jobs. It may mean mockery, imprisonment, blah, blah, blah. And then he says isolation. He says, then the line is isolation is the gift. All the others are a test of your endurance, of how much you want to do the thing. I love isolation. It was years of isolation that really got the foundation of who I am now. And even now, I spend tons and tons of time alone. And I get like Peterson talking about how people can't handle isolation, and like even in maximum security prisons surrounded by thugs, being put in isolation is the punishment. I get most people can't handle it. Is it Nietzsche who said, what a man takes into isolation grows there, or something like that? If you can overcome that, if you can find the beauty of isolation, if you can find that deep connection to all in isolation, you will feel really, really free. For many people, isolation is their biggest fear. But imagine being in a maximum security prison and being able to just go into the isolation and be happy in there. The ability to not just endure isolation, but to thrive in it is freedom. And it takes the pressure off all your outside relationships. But I understand not everyone can handle that. So for me, when I get into any extreme state now, whether it's really bad depression, whether it's like, and I've had plenty of times since I've gotten things more under control where I've been on the verge of psychosis, or where it's been setting in, manic rages, really extreme states. All I need, it doesn't matter which the state is, on the depressed end, on the upper end, all I need, if I get pushed too far into an extreme state, is to be left alone. And depending how fucked up I am, that's how long. Do I need a couple days? Do I need a couple weeks? Do I need a couple months? Oh, it's been a long time since I've needed that. But when I'm really, really fucked up, all I need is for everyone to leave me alone. I just need to have my supplies, as long as I've got food and water. Everyone just leave me alone. I can handle it on my own, no matter how fucked up I am in this moment. That's my curative space, is everyone just leave me alone. So isolation is my friend. I love isolation. But if you can't, but if isolation isn't good for you, what should you do? Because you said I can't be isolated. Okay, so why can't you be isolated? What is it about isolation that you can't handle? Because in isolation, it's just you. So if you can integrate the various parts of yourself, if you can accept and forgive the various parts of yourself, if you can come to grips with what you are, then isolation may be an option after that. On the other hand, if you really can't be isolated, then reach out to somebody. Find a way around that. And again, what is it? You can't leave your house, or you can't be around people. I don't know. Maybe we could have a longer conversation about this. If you can't leave your house, as a pet an option? Can you make a friend that is looking to get away from all the craziness of the world and sit quietly and spend some time with you where you are? Or is what's best for you to get out there? Do you need to find some activity that you force yourself to do? Sometimes there's things that we dread doing, but then once we start doing them, it's not so bad. And then once it's actually fully done, you're so glad you did it. Again, I don't know. Is it that you need to learn how to be in isolation? Do you need to let a small amount of the world into your private bubble? Or is what's best for you to really force yourself out into the world? Maybe we could talk about that more some other time when you can tell me more about yourself. I work out and rhyme when I'm alone. So that's, that's great use of the time. Yeah, go all the way is epic. Okay, that's what I meant by soul loss. My dog's death being my fault. Really hard not to be suicidal / move forward. Okay, yeah, fuck. If you're fighting with suicidal, let's definitely talk. Email the channel. But dog's death was an accident, man. You didn't lose your soul over that. If people lost their soul over accidentally killing dogs, even when you will want to allow that, like, because you're going to say, well, it's my fucking fault for letting psychosis go too bad. But then every fucking drunk driver who hit a dog, everyone who was texting when they hit a dog, would all have lost their souls. You didn't lose your soul over that. In fact, you wouldn't feel bad about that if you had lost your soul. The way you are feeling about your dog's death shows me you have a soul. Yeah, you got to fucking forgive yourself. It's really hard not to be suicidal and to move forward. You have to forgive yourself for that. And beyond that, if you're feeling suicidal, get help. So we're here for you. And aside from that, there's going to be lots of other help come your way if you're open to it. Yeah, and so Grizz says, I don't think that's what your dog would want for you, which is absolutely true. But on top of that, you didn't hurt your dog. That won't have been that painful a death. There's much worse deaths than that. And your dog is not in misery right now. If death is that blink out that like Ricky Gervais thinks it is, then it's nothing. It's just relief. And if there's anywhere to go, then there's somewhere to go. Your dog is not suffering right now. You're suffering. Also, I had a sort of near-death experience where I was hit by a bus. And before the bus hit me, like I didn't have like the loss of heartbeat or anything. I'm not saying I died and got brought back. But the bus was coming around this blind corner and I was sure I was going to die. And I had time freeze. And like all the raindrops were frozen in the air. And I had this, at first it was weird. I thought I was paralyzed. But then I noticed the bus wasn't getting any closer. And then I noticed the raindrops were frozen. And so I realized it wasn't that I was paralyzed. It was that my thought to move, it's just time was so slow that my body wasn't having time to move. And I couldn't get out of the way. And I had this panic, fuck, what do I do? And it was like, at first I tried to jump forward to get away from the bus hitting me. And it was like, weird, I can't move forward. So then I tried to jump back. It's like, weird, my body's frozen. And that's when I noticed time was frozen. And I noticed that when I tried to jump forward, I could just very slightly feel the leg muscles tensing. But I wasn't going anywhere because it was like time was so slowed down. And so I had this panic. What do I do? What do I do? And then it was like, oh, there's nothing to do. Time's frozen here for a moment. I'm going to get hit by the bus in a second, no matter what I do. There's no way out of this. I'm just going to die. And parts of my life started flashing through my mind. And then it was all the people who needed me. So, you know, my parents and my siblings and my first wife. I was married back then. And just unfinished projects. Like in just a moment, all these flashes of things, the work I'd done with Trauma Films, everything unfinished, everything of people relying on me, all sort of flooded in. And then there was just this, and I realized they were all fine, that I wasn't responsible for anything from this point forward, that if I'm dying now, I've done my part. And they can handle what's coming next. And I heard Kevin Smith say that his mother had actually died and been brought back, like one of those full-on near death. And that she came back saying the same thing, that there was this relief. It was, I never have to change the litter box. I'm not responsible for anything anymore. I'm done. And there's this feeling of, because there was all the frozen raindrops around me. There was just this feeling of, don't worry, it's perfect. Even with the problems, it's perfect. Every raindrop is exactly where it's supposed to be. I'm where I'm supposed to be. The bus is where it's supposed to be. Every problem that exists are exactly the problems that are meant to be here at this point. Everything is perfect. Everything is fine. And then just this connection to, I didn't like go through the tunnel, but it was that connection to the other side. Feeling that really strongly, knowing in a moment I was going to die. And there was just this timeless moment of intense peace, and that's what your dog had at the end. It wasn't the horror story we imagine. So I'm sure your dog had the panic of, oh shit, I'm going to die. But after that is not the worst experience ever. After that is the most relief you'll ever feel. And yeah, I think that's enough said on that. A lot of people lose it in solitary. Most people, yeah. And like that's what Peterson says, and that's what I've seen a couple other things about isolation. And apparently it drives most people, yeah, it really fucks them up. But I guess maybe this is like the whole snake pit idea. When back in the day, for a schizophrenic or somebody bipolar, even though they wouldn't have had that term back then, the idea was that if you lower a sane person into a pit of snakes, it'll drive them crazy. So maybe it'll make a crazy person sane. Which that one did not work. I don't know if that's what it's like with me in isolation. The way it would drive most people insane is the reason it straightened me out, because I was already insane. But I do think there are other, because I mean, look at the mystics and the monks and shit who can spend time in isolation. I don't think for them it's a case of insanity being cured. And also there have been a number of philosophers and artists who thrive in isolation. So some of us can thrive in isolation. And if you can, you have no idea what kind of freedom that is. Like Since learning how to thrive in isolation, when I met my second wife, like the woman I'm married to now, I noticed once I got together with her that every other relationship in my life, the fact that I couldn't handle isolation put immense pressure on the relationship and made me put immense pressure on the person I was with. When you know that you're perfectly fine on your own, it's so much easier to let the other person be them, to not hold on as tightly, to not be as jealous or as demanding. And when, those bad fights happen now and then and you think you're going to break up, it's like, it's one thing to be missing a specific person, but it's another thing to be missing a specific person and being able to be okay on my own. So the same thing at the thought of like losing a spouse or the thought of losing your whole family and ending up alone. Yes, like that would be brutally hard to lose my whole family. I would miss them. But on the other hand, I know aside from that grief, I'm okay on my own. If I also wasn't okay on my own, then that just becomes too terrifying to even imagine. Okay, so Cosmos of Compassion saying some stuff I don't understand, and then I'm so suicidal to live after this horrible experience. All right, so I didn't know why I was coming on here, and I even titled it, what did I title it? Why are you here? So yeah, so you're here because you're suicidal, and maybe that's the reason I felt compelled to come on. So Cosmos of Compassion, watch my live stream called Responding to a Cry for Help. I did a video right after I saw the Jordan Peterson event where someone jumped on stage screaming for help. And so I talk about suicidal states in that to a certain degree. So whether it's after we're done here tonight or tomorrow or sometime, watch my other Lunatic Live Responding to a Cry for Help Jordan Peterson Liberty U event or something like that. Take a look at that. But stay in contact with the channel. Me and Ryan are both going to be here for you. And don't give up. All right. So I totally thank you for sharing your power. I feel what you're saying. It didn't feel perfect when I pulled his rock hard body from the bottom of the pool, but I totally see. Yeah. But maybe it was perfect. Death's a part of life here. And it's that rock hard body. It's because you were thinking suddenly that that's what your dog was. But even from the materialist point of view, your dog wasn't in there anymore. But I've been getting more into the mystical side of it anyway. So I'm going to say what you pulled out was what he left behind to be reincorporated into the organic matter here and to continue the process of life. Your dog was not in that body when you pulled it out. Where he was somewhere better. And if you're going to commit to God as good, then it means even all of that horrible shit serves the good. And perhaps the greater depth of misery that we can experience in a sort of almost like the physics of emotion, the greater depth of despair you can feel means the greater euphoric ecstasy you can experience on the other side. And that you may find one day you look back on all of this and see how it was all perfect, even the worst parts of it. Wait, so I'm going to skip other people and just jump down to him for a second. Will do, thank you, and we'll email you too. Okay, awesome. Thanks a lot for that. And I don't know how serious, like, I don't know how close you are to actual suicide. Would you be willing to commit to not killing yourself until after we speak at the very least? Would you be willing to continue living until we do get a chance to talk? It would be nice if I knew I didn't have to worry that you would disappear before we had a chance to talk. And I know that could be asking a lot to ask you to make, to say that in the condition you're in. So no pressure. But if you did want to. Crying really hard at the moment. Thank you. Yes, I would be willing to not do that until we talk. Yes, thank you. All right, beautiful. I love that. Buck, thank you so much for that. Yeah, stick around at least until we talk. And then let's take things from there. Thank you very much for that. That means a lot to me. Okay, and Asa or Asia Winchester saying, I can't be isolated because I've been thinking about the future and I'm one crisis away from having a complete psychotic break. If my mom dies or something, don't have good foundational relationships, and I'm an introvert. All right, so it sounds like you're dealing with quite a bit as well. What coping mechanisms do you have for keeping yourself from having a total psychotic break? Are you getting enough sleep? Are you eating enough? But also would you be willing to write into the channel and perhaps we could set up a talk sometime soon so we could do a little better job here of getting more in depth at talking through how to avoid that complete psychotic break? So yeah, if you would write into the channel as well, we can set something up. Okay, Grizz, good night. Thanks for joining us. Okay, so Tay says, I don't mean to disrupt. That's fine. Do I mind telling you what this stream's all about? Hearing it straight from the horse's mouth sounds exciting. Why the name Lunatic Live? So with this channel, it's me and Ryan Hallsapple running it at the moment. We're sort of co-hosts. Lunatic Live, it's because sometimes he comes live, sometimes I do, sometimes we both do. Lunatic Live is the title saying that this is going to be me coming on live, like just me specifically. And it's because I'm a lunatic hermit, bipolar type 1. I've yeah, I've been locked up in mental institutions, had total psychotic breaks. So yeah, this is Lunatic Live. It's a chance to talk to a lunatic live through the magic of the internet. Okay, so Diaz says, I don't know why I'm here either, but it must be so you can help me. All right, well, what's your problem? If you say that's why you're here, what do you need help with? Frankie Boy in the gang says, I love you. I don't know if you're talking to someone else there or me, but either way, I love you, Frankie Boy. Okay, and Cosmos of Compassion saying, yeah, I think we may be more than just physical. Yeah, okay, and now I'm always comfortable with either. If someone's even like not agnostic, if someone's an atheist and they just want to talk about everything from that perspective, I'm happy to engage that way. But if somebody is a believer, I'm happy to engage that way as well. I have both parts of me. I lean more of me as believer, but I'm always happy to talk to atheists as well. I can keep it out of the metaphysical if that's what people prefer, but if you're comfortable with the metaphysical or spiritual, then I think we can make a lot of progress with your issues. Wow, I've been on for over 2 hours now. It's not that far from 4 in the morning. So I think maybe I'm going to call it quits. So what do I hope to achieve with the channel? You started a channel recently in an attempt to outlet my severe issues and make my world more friendly and habitable for me. Oh, if you're saying ox, I said I was going to get off. Don't worry, Tay. I'll answer you first. So I hope to achieve something good with this channel. That is the extent of it for me. I haven't planned it further than that. I don't know if you heard the beginning of this or not, but I never even planned to do this channel. Andrew Jokum started this channel 2 years ago. He ran it for a while. I ended up becoming friends with him, helping him out a bit, not privately. That led to me going on and doing a couple podcasts with him. That led to me making friends with Ryan Hallsapple, who had another channel. Ryan asked me for some mentoring, and I worked mentoring him a bit, but also just became good friends with him. When Andrew was ready to get rid of the channel, he asked me and Ryan to take it over. And and Ryan's not just some lunatic. Ryan's in school right now studying Jungian psychology. He's trained in Gestalt dream therapy. He's trained in various nature-based therapies. So he's like a proper sort of therapist type transformational coach. I'm just providing the lunatic shaman aspect of it. But for me, I came into this because even when I did the couple things with Andrew, and those podcasts aren't up anymore because Andrew wants his private stuff down. A few audience members viewers commented that they'd like to see me start my own channel. I didn't feel up for doing that. But by the time Andrew was ready to stop the channel completely, he asked me and Ryan to take it over together. I couldn't have handled it taking it over on my own. But working with him has worked out well so far. And my goal when I started the channel and the magical declaration I set for it was that I would try to do the channel And I would do it so long as it was good for Andrew, his family, and his community. Like it was good for him walking away that I take it over. That it would be good for Ryan, my partner here, his family, and his community. That it would be good for me, my family, my community. And that it would be good for the viewers, their families, and their communities. And I define good with a capital G, meaning the good that is beyond my understanding. God's idea of good. And I accepted that if what was good was that I take over the channel, it just steadily nosedives down to 0 subscribers, crashes and burns in flames. And that's a lesson I needed to learn and would also somehow be what is best for everyone else at all. I accepted that. So I have just been looking for what good I can do with the channel, and it's mostly been taking shape on its own from there. Ryan has had a more planned out, practical approach, but I've been very much just winging it and seeing what it is that was being asked from me. So, yeah, I just hope to achieve something good with the channel. And that feels like long enough to me. I've been on for well over 2 hours, and I think I'm going to sign off there. Leave it on that note that my goal for the channel is just that it does something good. Everyone I spoke to who's going through some major shit at the moment, yeah, right into the channel, and we'll keep in touch. Don't give up. There's light out there. It may not be much light, but the more often you look for it, the more light you'll find. So, lunatic love and blessings to you all.